You've been getting more involved with training people for active shooter, active violent incidents.
Patterns have emerged, unfortunately, due to the high volume of these incidents. I need to be prepared because I may be part of the solution.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to Disaster Class.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Disaster Class. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And Wesley.
Class is in session.
Class is in session. And so we're excited today because we have a good friend with us. Today we have with us Jason Giove.
Yes.
Jason, welcome to Disaster Class.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to chat with you today. So to give our audience and our listeners, our viewers, just a little bit of background about you. So Jason works with us here at Instinct Ready in a number of roles, and you do quite a bit. You're a first aid, you're a CPR instructor, you're one of our community support specialists that works with clients about finding different solutions to be able to help them be more prepared for an emergency. You're going to be a soon-to-be CEP instructor. That's our community emergency planning class. And then you are also help us develop new educational content. Yeah. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that later in this episode. We're really excited about some of the things you're working on. But maybe to just get ourselves started with this episode, can you just provide us with just a brief overview of some of your background and experience?
Absolutely, yeah. So I worked for a multinational not-for-profit for almost 25 years up in the New York area. I had various leadership roles, served as an EMT and one of the EMT chiefs and trainers. So I worked with MCI drills and various things, both in New York City as well as upstate New York. And then have a background in public speaking and business coaching. So I work with leaders and individuals to help kind of with transforming some of their biases. They get more out of their potential in life, either professionally or personally. I have two businesses, 4 Minutes to Life. That's my safety training. So I do active shooter training, certified in that, CPR, first aid, work with the city of Houston as one of their trainers. And then my business is for coaching is EQ for Life. That's emotional intelligence for your life. So that's what I've been doing most recently.
Thank you for that. That's a very robust set of experiences that you come from. But recently, you've been getting more involved with training people for active shooter, active violent incidents. Can you speak to some of the trends that we're seeing currently in the industry for that?
Patterns have emerged, unfortunately, due to the high volume of these incidents. And typically speaking, the FBI, who publishes a very helpful document for just general awareness, they break this into two categories, these trends or these patterns. Location, in other words, where these things happen, what are we learning from that? And then time and outcome. In other words, how long does these last and how do they end? What is it that ends them? So briefly, as far as location, the FBI has broken this into three different categories: malls, businesses that are open to the public, and then businesses that are closed to the public. It's relevant because in the sector of businesses that are closed to the public, they have learned that 22 out of 23 of these shooter incidents that happen in a business that's closed to the public, in 22 of those incidents, it was current or former employees that were involved as the shooter. And interestingly, 4 of them had been fired on the day of the shooting. So these are relevant information that just the public should be aware of as far as the patterns. Another pattern is regarding the time. Generally speaking, these events are over in 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
And 60% of them, and this is relevant, 60% are finished before law enforcement arrives. So what that taught me is I need to be prepared because I may be part of the solution. I can't just wait for law enforcement to show up. So those are just a couple of the very helpful patterns that we've seen.
Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely interesting statistics.
Yeah, it's
and
very,
stuff.
very interesting.
Yeah, especially the time frame that how most of them are over really quickly. I mean, there are exceptions, I think, to that rule. In fact, we were just hanging out with Chief Brian Davis of the Orlando Fire Department back in December. He was the incident commander on the Pulse nightclub shooting. And that was a unique event because usually, like you said, they're over really quick. But that particular event was a 3-hour
3-hour
event,
standoff,
which was like it was insane. I mean, we should have him on the podcast eventually to talk about that. But so now you talked about some of the there's guidelines in place. DHS, Department of Homeland Security. There's a lot of different guidelines on how someone can respond, because like you said, it's a lot of it's falling on the individuals now. Like before, sometimes it's finished before even law enforcement gets there. So a lot of it is dependent on us who is there to be able to do something. So can you explain some of the various methods, some of the various guidelines that exist, so that our audience can be familiar with them?
Sure. There are various guidelines or methods. I'm just going to comment on two. The one that people are most familiar with is run, hide, or fight. That's the Department of Homeland Security and FBI's training. It's a good training. It's excellent. It's good awareness. The one caution or the one add-on, I would say, just in the various trainings I've taken to become certified, is just to be aware of the wording. For example, some have viewed the run, hide, fight as kind of a linear. In other words, step one is run, step two, step three. And there's a little danger in that, because if the first thing that comes to your mind is run, what we've learned is that you can't tell very easily where the shots are coming from.
Right.
And so what some have done is they've run right into the shooter or to the area that's the concern. So just something to think about for your listening audience on that particular methodology. Hide is also something to think about. We've learned it's not a great idea to hide underneath your desk or your cubicle. That's not a good practice. So these words have to be thought about in people that are taking the training, and we expand on that so that you don't get the wrong idea. Now, fight, you may need to be ready, and that's a last option, but it could be something that you need to be prepared to do. Another methodology that we're familiar with, and I'm personally a fan of, is called the 3 outs. So that is lock out, get out, or take out. And this is trained more, not linearly, but more circular. In other words, depending on where you are and what's happening, you may decide to do one of those first and not just think about run. So as an example, if you're in a space and you can lock out the shooter, do it. Don't run. So lock out, get out if you can, take out if you need to. And in the trainings that we offer, we show kind of people how to do that so that they can swarm. That's a tactic that's typically taught, so that the shooter is completely, he's not expecting that. And so that's those are the two methodologies. There's others, but we wanted to comment on.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I like that.
It helps, and it gets into the next thought, situational awareness. Can you speak to the value of maintaining situational awareness when people are just in general out in public? Can you explain what that is and how people can do it, right? To stay ready, stay prepared.
Sure. One of our biggest enemies, to be honest, is our own mindset, right? And we talk a lot about in our training about normalcy bias or status quo thinking. Basically, the idea is it's never happened here, so it never will. That, of course, is dangerous, and that only leads to disbelief, denial, panic, and then helplessness. So having the mindset up front and not having the situational awareness is dangerous. So there's a few ways to overcome that. I'll just comment on two. First of all, get some training. Mm-hmm. This podcast is valuable training. It's awareness. And so one way to kind of change that mindset a little bit is to get some training and get some awareness. And we offer a training here at Instinct Ready, which we'll talk about a little later. The second thing, believe it or not, is practice mindfulness. Now, I'm not talking about
Right.
Religious. I'm talking about mindfulness from this perspective. Take, for example, Wesley, which grocery store do you do your shopping at?
Usually ShopRite.
Okay. So we have these places that we frequent every week. And so what we like to do in the training is help people to think about practicing a little mindfulness. As an example, rather than just going on autopilot as you go into the parking lot and as you go into the store, not every time, but on occasion, maybe take a picture of where your car is parked, L7. How many times have you not been able to remember where your car was? The reason you couldn't remember something so simple is our mind is on autopilot. We need to break that. That's feeding into the normalcy bias. So I take a picture of where I'm parked. And then when I go into the restaurant, practice listening. Now, as you're making your way down the aisle, just listen to the various sounds. You're just trying to be present and mindful about what's going on around you. Believe it or not, it can be a great help. Notice the exit and the entry doors and find out how the cash registers, how everything's lined up, and just be thinking about those things. And finally, it's not always practical to do, but I find it's helpful to always carry with you, if possible, one preparedness item. Now, I hold up a tourniquet. This can fit into a backpack or a purse very easily. And just having this as you're rifling through it from time to time, that reminds you, I need to actually be ready and to think that this could happen. And it's actually very practical and very helpful.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So we're going to pause real quick for this week's sponsors.
When you need an emergency plan, you need Doberman Emergency Management. Whether you are buying a home and want to know about your local hazards, or you are a professional needing additional support, Doberman Emergency Management can help. Visit DobermanEMG.com today to learn more.
Instinct Ready is here to help educate, prepare, and equip you for disasters. Everything from disaster preparedness education to quality survival products. Use promo code DisasterClass at InstinctReady.com today for 10% off site-wide, because preparedness starts at home. All right, let's head back to the show. I think, for us that are work in response, so like EMS, right, police, fire, we're pretty good about having situational awareness, especially like for me, I go into apartment buildings and new locations all the time, and always having an exit strategy. As you're walking in, it's like, okay, I'm walking in here. This is a completely new, unfamiliar surroundings, right? Where are my exit points? Like, where are the stairs if the elevator's not accessible? And you kind of go through this little, and then the same thing, like when I'm out in public, even out to dinner, I always like to be in the seat facing the door. Yeah. And just taking a glance, looking around, okay, does anything kind of seem weird? Or
anything catch my eye?
Anything catch my eye, right? Yeah. Because it's so, like, we're so just, a lot of people these days are just, they got the blinders on. Like, they're looking at the phone. They're just
it's autopilot. It's exactly what you said.
Everything you're saying is just 100%. Like, there's a lot of times people are just oblivious of what's around them. So, just.
Even while driving. Let me not get into that.
Right?
We laugh because we've all experienced it when we know that the people around us driving in the space near us are not paying attention to anything. Right. Like you can tell they're just zoned out.
Just today, actually, on the way to the office, I had that. I'm not gonna we'll talk about it.
There's always something.
But no, it's good. It was really and it's just practical, like everything you just talked about right there. It's just it's easy, it's practical, just to get just a better awareness of your surroundings is crucial, because you might be able to pick up on something that
just isn't right. Yeah, and it could tip you off. It might be the few seconds or minutes that you need that get you ahead of the thing.
Right, exactly.
Anyone that's big on making shopping lists, we've even recommend on the shopping list, number 7, after picking up the ice cream, say, check where the exit is.
Yeah, you just have
put it on your list.
Right,
and you're thinking about it. Yep.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's been very practical. So kind of, I guess along with, we talked about maintaining situational awareness. Now let's jump into warning signs. Are there warning signs that people should be aware of regarding an active violent incident? And is there any information available that helps us to understand the mindset of an attacker?
Yeah. Good questions. And we have answers to both. As far as warning signs, the FBI has done a lot of study on this, and there's no exact profile for an active shooter. So please take all of this. It's a subjective bit of information, but it's helpful. Mm-hmm. But here are a couple. Typically speaking, these armed intruders are not shy about using social media to express frustrations, and in some cases, even maybe something that could be a tip-off. So that's one pattern that we've seen that might be a warning sign. Here's another one. The shooter may have had, prior to the event, a significant real or perceived personal loss in the weeks or months preceding the event. So a death, a divorce, a loss of a job. That's been another warning sign that the FBI has mentioned. And then third, behavior. Now, again, this is subjective, but phrases like, one of these days, people are going to pay for pushing me around. They've seen that in some cases, this frustration, these shooters view themselves as an ultimate victim of society, and they want to change that. So that type of mentality has been seen repeatedly. So those are some of the warning signs. The mindset, I'll give you 6, just real briefly. They're seeking notoriety. They want to set the record. Number 2, they see themselves as the victim in society and want to change that. Number 3, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. When they start, they're not going to stop. Number 4, interestingly, they know they only have about 2 to 5 minutes to carry out the plan. And therefore, they often have a plan for their own demise. They've already thought this through in many cases. And lastly, they don't have an exit plan. Yeah. So if I'm on the other side and I'm involved, it's good for me to know that that's often what has been observed as the mindset.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, it's valuable information to just have kicking around, be thinking about those things, and it makes total sense. But so here's a question. Are there things that maybe we should not do during a violent incident?
Yeah, here's 3 things briefly. Don't give up power to the perpetrator. That's what they expect will happen because they're all strapped up and ready to go. So the idea of this approach, yeah. So to the degree that a person can, we train them not to give up power as if they're completely helpless, because you might not be. Number 2, begging for your life may only reinforce the idea that the shooter's in charge, and that now he's the victimizer, not the victim. And number 3, don't do nothing. Doing nothing is often the worst approach to take. So those are just a few ideas.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, it's one of those situations we hope we're never in.
Correct.
But got to be mentally prepared in the event that it does.
And like you said, if we just have a little bit of training prior, it
right.
could make the world a difference.
So,
it really can. So
speaking to that, and I think that's a good segue into the next question, which is, you're developing. We talked about in the outset. You do some content development, some educational development, and so you're actually working on a new class for us at Instinct Ready, which we're really excited about. We're going to be calling it ART, AART, or Active Assailant Response Training. Can you tell us a little bit about that course that you're developing and what it's going to be able to help our students be able to do?
Absolutely. Thank you. So there's 2 delivery methods or options, ways people could take the class. One is virtual. So this is an affordable, informational class online that people can sign up for. And it's going to do a deeper dive into some of the things that we've talked about. We kind of just brushed the surface on this podcast. This is designed for anyone in the community, business leaders, families, anyone could be able to take this class. And right now we're kind of designing this to be about 90 minutes in length. The second option would be an in-person training. So we could be hired to come to your company, for example, or your business. We can train anywhere from 15 to 30 people in this and actually show them how to respond. And we go deeper into some of the psychology of it. This is going to be about a 4-hour training, and you would end up with a certificate for that training, the in-person training.
Nice.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we're we're really excited to get that class developed and get it rolling out quick, because I know a lot of people, they've got these types of events in their mind, and it's very useful information. And this reason, like we didn't call it active shooter response training, we're calling it active assailant response training, because maybe we're used to it being involving a gun, but there's many different types of active violent threats. It could be with anything, with a knife or machete or with anything. So kind of broadening it to just active violent incidents in general is going to be very nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. And we know that you are also one of our individuals, our community support specialists. So you have one of our quick packs. I think you've mentioned that. What do you think about the kit? And would it be useful during an active violent incident, right? An active assailant.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have mine here. Got one for myself. Always carry it in my car. Get one for my wife as well. Yeah, absolutely. This is compact. It's easy to use. We actually show the audience or the students that attend our training virtually or in person how to use this. But they get to practice with it if, in fact, they have one and they purchase one. So absolutely a vital. Now, part of situational awareness and rehearsal on this concept is, right, you go into the grocery store and you're not going to have this,
right?
Possibly, right? So the idea, though, is regardless of whether it's a car accident, you're first on scene, having this in your car is helpful. And like I mentioned earlier, even having one of the key components, such as a tourniquet on your person, if you choose to do that, could be a way to just extend the usefulness of this. But I would say this, any business, right, for their employees and the public that come to visit them, boy, if they have one of these, and their customers, their employees are trained to use it.
Huge.
We have learned that the bullet's not often what does the damage, it's the bleeding. Right. And so if people could stop the bleeding, and tourniquets are not hard to use, we'd save a lot more lives. So absolutely, it's a must-have in my opinion.
Absolutely. And what a good call out. Just, it's a practical thing that we can do. So if our organization is interested in buying these, in bulk, we have discounts and things available for that. And then to your point, Jason, too, is we also provide the training.
Yep.
And that's the key component, is not only having the tools and equipment, but the training on how to use it.
Right. And then we even have the public access bleeding control kits, which is a little bit different than the quick pack. Built specifically designed for public areas, like
Correct.
Points of ingress and egress at buildings. It could be placed in the same container that's holding your AED, right? There's a lot of things that we can provide to an organization, a university, a school district. We're doing some work with different school districts around the United States. Mm-hmm. So a lot of options there because of the need, unfortunately, that seems to be increasing.
Yeah. Very, So thank you very much, Jason, for helping us walk through some very practical suggestions and things that just people can start doing even today, and even clarifying some of those. People have heard that run, hide, fight before. Often it's they may have seen it like advertised with the special campaigns.
I've taken the training a couple times,
but breaking down is a little bit more than just knowing those terms, but really the meaning behind it and how the implications for it. So definitely, we're going to be posting some information soon. Two things: we'll put a link in the description and the show notes where you can get purchase a quick pack, a discount for that, and then also we're going to be posting information for when you put that first class for that active assailant response training, the art class. We're looking forward to that launching.
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead
and
thank you so much. And briefly before we conclude, where can people go if they want to stay in touch with you, if they want to be able to connect or learn more about you?
Yeah, thank you. No, thanks for having me. I would say it's my pleasure. This is a hard topic to say it's a pleasure to talk about, but I love helping people in various ways. So this was very beneficial for me as well to give this outreach. As far as reaching me, I would say you could go through Instinct Ready would be one way to go. And then my website I've got a website that's got the coaching portion as well as the my safety page where people can hire me locally, let's say, for example, for CPR, virtual or otherwise. So we can put that perhaps in the information
we'll
as
put
well.
it in the show
websites.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be good. EQ for Life is the website, and then there's an EQ for Life / safety training. So, but we'll put that in the in the information.
Awesome, great, thanks so much. Well, we're going to stop here, and we're going to continue our conversation with you next week because you have some more things to talk about, and maybe we can just give a little teaser for our audience. What are we going to talk about in next week's episode?
Very good. So it's basically the human behavior of emergencies. In other words, why do we respond the way we do? Why does enormity bias affect all of us, even just with dealing with their family, getting in an argument, conflict resolution? So we'll do a much deeper dive into the culture that some safety organizations are called HROs, or high risk or reliability organizations. What are they doing to help people develop a more realistic view of preparedness? So yeah, it's going to be a great episode on behavior.
Interesting.
Very nice.
Getting into the psychology
I
of
love
it.
it.
That's going to be interesting subject. So thank you so
good.
much, Jason. Well, Wesley, before we conclude this episode of Disaster Class, as always,
no homework
there's
this week?
There's always
there's
homework.
always
Come
homework.
on. We're always giving homework.
All right. Yeah, we hope you guys will like, subscribe to Disaster Class as usual. Leave us the 5-star rating, the thumbs up. Please comment on something that maybe you learned or you appreciated from this episode. We always want to hear from you guys.
Yeah. And as always, if you have a question, you have a preparedness tip, a disaster story to share, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com or drop us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And doing so will put you in the running to be featured on the show and win some cool stuff like a Disaster Class t-shirt or sweatshirt or whatever.
Yeah, get some swag.
Get some swag. So send us your messages. So we'd love to hear from you. But as always, thanks so much for tuning in to Disaster Class. Stay educated.
Stay prepared.
Stay equipped. Class dismissed. Disaster Class is part of the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services.